We are 1 minute in. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Almost afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining today's Lean Bites. My name is Jason Buck. I'm the Business Development Director here at Lean Techniques. If this is your first time here, welcome. Just as a reminder, Lean Bites are short 16-minute talks. Get it? Bites 16. Where we work to provide you with just simple practical tips and techniques so you can start applying those within your organization today. A few housekeeping items really quick. Number one, if you have any questions through today's talk, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll either address them at the end of time or if it allows during Cameron's presentation, we could do that as well. And do us a huge favor at the end of the Lean Bites, there's going to be a survey that automatically pops up. Your feedback's super important to us. If you could take the 15 seconds to fill that out, that would be awesome. So with that, going to get started. I'm very excited to announce my friend, Cameron Presley. He's a tech lead and professional software consultant here at Lean Techniques. He resides out in North Carolina, and he is also a Microsoft MVP, and he is here to discuss learning from failure, post-mortems for resilient teams. So Cameron, take it over. Over to you, man.
Excellent. Thanks, Jason, for the intro. I appreciate that. So as Jason mentioned, my name is Cameron Presley, and we're here to learn about, well, how do we learn from failures and about these post-mortems and how they can help us build more resilient teams. So when I think about engineering teams, right, or teams in general, doesn't always have to be engineering, healthy organizations run experiments, right? Things that we think are good and effective today may not always be. So part of that learning is to figure out what are different ways of working to help us be more effective, more efficient, better. But not every experiment is going to be successful, right? Some are going to be awesome, right? Fireworks exploding, everyone's super excited. Yeah, this is awesome. But sometimes we're going to have some that are like, broken glass a little bit here, but not a problem. We can recover from those. And then sometimes we may even have experiments that are more like this, like, that's not a broken piece of glass. We're replacing the whole windshield and then some, right? The thing, though, that we have to remember is that things are going to go wrong. That's normal. That's part of life. That's part of engineering. That's part of experimenting and growing. But when things do go wrong, how can we learn from them? Right? It's okay that we messed up, but if we don't learn anything from it, well, then we've messed up twice, right? The first mistake and then more likely doomed to repeat it again. So let's take a look at a different discipline's way of learning from mistakes or learning from failures. And for that, we're actually going to lean into the healthcare and medical industry a little bit and look at this concept of postmortems. Now, postmortems, the term, are very popular in engineering for tech incidents, things like that. But if we actually look at what they come from healthcare, and the idea is that the doctors or those performing the postmortem is trying to figure out, how did the patient pass, right? They're trying to learn something here. So whether that is because they were misdiagnosed or something else. And postmortems had a set of questions that they were trying to answer. First of all, who was this person? You'd think that'd be really obvious, but sometimes not the case. What was the cause of death? Was it old age? Was it trauma? Was it an accident? Something of that sort? And then what time did they pass? All of these things kind of build up a picture of how did this person come to be? And then the doctors and those doing the postmortem can learn about, okay, did we mistreat them? Did we do something wrong on our side? Well, we can take a lot of those same lessons and apply it to engineering, right? So how do we analyze our failures? Now, the secret I'm going to give you is that there's 4 steps you need to do. The first step you need to do is you got to figure out what went wrong. So in this example, we've got a busted tire, right? Got a flat tire. That's not cool. So we got to figure out why. Okay, how did we get here? What led to us getting this flat tire? What led to us making these mistakes? What were some of the decisions and input that drove us into that? And then, okay, we know what went wrong. We know how we got here, but what really caused the issue? And we'll spend a little more time on this section because I'm going to let you on a little secret that a lot of teams make this mistake, and I'm going to teach you how not to make the same mistake that they make. And then last but not least, what lessons to share. I kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier, but if we're going to mess up and we learn things that we shouldn't do, we should probably share that with others so they don't make the same mistake that we did, so we're not paying that tax twice. Let's go a little bit deeper though. Let's talk about what went wrong. So in this section, what I like to do is figure out what exactly happened. And most importantly, what was the impact? Now, I'm a software engineer by trade, so I love geeking out about the technical details like, oh, this API was down, or, oh yeah, this database wasn't responsive. And that's really cool for technologists. But remember, we work with business and product as well. So we need to really focus about what was the impact to our customers, to our users, to the bottom line. So you can mention that in terms of people impacted, how long the impact was for, or the amount of money that was spent. For example, I was working with one client where they had a service outage where clients were not able to log into their system. Okay, so we looked and calculated how many people were unable to log in. That was your scope of impact, right? And in this client's case, it was a couple million people. Thankfully, we were able to get them up and running, but lessons learned there, right? So at this stage, we figured out kind of what happened. Something went wrong. We know what the impact was, but how did we get here? And I alluded to this earlier, but something had to start the failure. So what was it? Was it turning on a feature flag? Was it deploying something to that environment? Was it someone deployed a piece of code that you weren't expecting to be deployed, or one of your downstream dependencies started failing? So what were those things? And the reason why this section is so important is because it starts giving you the insight and inspiration behind, okay, if this is what started causing it, if we start seeing these signs again, maybe we should head that off a little bit earlier. So spending some time figuring this out. The third section is what caused the issue. So in this case, we had a flat tire. It's because we had some rusty nails. So you might be thinking, oh, well, that's obvious. We had a rusty nail in the tire. Well, how did we get a rusty nail in the tire? Oh, well, we've got a rusty nail in our tire because we had someone replace the shingles on our roof recently and we didn't clean up all the nails. Okay, well, why didn't we clean up all the nails? Oh, well, we had this magnet and we kind of did it, but we didn't cover all the areas. So by digging in using 5 whys, you can get some attempts at figuring out what was really the root cause. Now, 5 whys is pretty cool. It's very intuitive, but there's also some alternative approaches that I like. One's called fishbone diagram, where there are a lot of confounding factors that may have caused the problem, and the fishbone diagram gives you a more pictorial way of looking at that. And then cause maps is very similar to a fishbone, except it's read in the opposite direction. I know that sounds a little bit confusing, but if you were to look at some of the resources, you'll see. The common mistake teams make here is that they will attribute, oh, human error. Oh, the developer made a mistake. We made a mistake. This person made a mistake. No. If your root cause is humans make errors, then you're always going to be broken because to err is to human, right? So if that's not really your root cause, humans' decisions are based on the environment and what they know. So if they made a mistake, most likely it's an issue with your process or your environment. But I see teams make this mistake a lot. Last but not least, what lessons to share? Well, something busted, you fixed it. Well, what'd you learn, right? What did you learn that's going to help us prevent this problem from going forward? Maybe you've got some action items. Maybe you're going to add some better testing. You're going to put some release gates. Maybe you're going to tweak your process a little bit. But what are those things? Some of it is, here are things that are going to prevent this problem from going forward. Some of this is preventing it from ever happening. Some of it may be, yeah, we can't always prevent it, but here's how we're going to know sooner that something broke so we can fix it sooner. Now, at this point, we've talked a lot about how to find this information, but I'm going to give you one more tip if you're running postmortems with your teams. Setting the tone. It is very normal and common for people to feel a little bit scared or frightened. So it is paramount for you to establish psychological safety. No one should feel like they're losing their job. No one should feel like they're getting fired. No one should feel like that, right? Because the goal of the whole point of the postmortem is to figure out how did this failure happen and why it happened. And you can only get that if people feel safe. If people are scared for their job, they're not going to tell you anything. They're going to clam up. They're going to say very little. You have to understand that people acted in good faith and to the best of their ability. If for some reason you can't trust your team, you've got much bigger cultural problems on your team than just figuring out what broke in production. Right? Can't stress this enough. All right. So at this point, you figured out what's happened. You've got some root causes. You've got some lessons to learn. How do you share this with others? Right? I kind of alluded to this before. We've got all these cool concepts, but we want to make sure that other teams don't run into it. So how do we do it? Well, one thing I recommend to most teams is actually do a post-mortem review, right? Outside of just your team. In fact, I usually recommend open up to anyone from the company. This can be both technology. This could be outside of technology. And when you do these post-mortem reviews, you're going to make sure you cover those 4 concepts we just talked about, right? What went wrong? How did we get here? What caused it? And lessons learned, action items. And you might be thinking, but Cameron, this is dumb. Why am I sharing this with the rest of the company? Me and my team have already figured this out, right? I don't need to share this to anyone. Why do I have to do it? We may have even already implemented our action items. Here's why. When you open up to others, it's really possible that you're not the first team to run into this. In my experience, especially with larger companies, you have a situation where the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. So a team may have already found the same problem you ran into and they've already solved it one way. So instead of trying to reinvent the wheel or try to do something new, you could just reuse and leverage what they've had. Another cool thing about sharing this with others is that you actually get feedback too. So you might have came to one conclusion and they may know something about the system that you didn't. So they actually have better feedback. They have a better suggestion. That's the power of post-mortem reviews. So a whole bunch of stuff to cram into 16 minutes, and I can't make you an expert in postmortems, but what I can do is I can give you some tools that you might find helpful if you're really interested in trying to establish this at your company or with your teams. So 3 resources I highly recommend is this first one, how to start your own postmortem process. This is a blog post that I wrote that is great for you've never ran to a postmortem to like you're running your first one. So it gives you templates, it gives you questions, it gives you things how to get set up. It's fantastic. Earlier, I mentioned 3 different ways you can do root cause analysis. I found this blog post to be really helpful, where it goes into a little bit more detail about 5 whys, the fishbone, and cause maps. So if you're wanting to explore a little bit more what that UI looks like and that, I recommend this blog post. Last but not least, site reliability at Google. If you're not familiar with this, Google publishes a ton of their site reliability practices and patterns on their own stuff. And they have a fantastic page on how to do a blameless postmortem. A lot of great advice for setting up psychological safety, information you want to capture, things like that. So can't recommend these resources highly enough. With that being said, thank you so much for coming out to today's Lean Bites. You can obviously connect with me on LinkedIn. Just look for Cameron Presley. You'll see that same exact smiling face there. And if you're interested in knowing a little bit more about me or some of the work I've done, you can go to thesoftwarementor.com. Otherwise, thank you all so much for your time today.
Awesome. Nice work, Cameron. Thank you so much. Do we have any questions? Anybody have any examples, experiences, things that you might want to share or ask Cameron about? Everybody's shy on this dreary Tuesday for the 4th day in a row here in Des Moines, Cameron.
I can't say anything. It's pretty dreary here in Charlotte. It's been raining buckets all day, so I can empathize with that a little bit. And Jason, maybe I just did such a great job that made everyone experts in 16 minutes. Really, that's another way of saying about it, right?
100% what I was thinking as well. Awesome. Well, all right. If you do have any questions, feel free to email us. There will be a follow-up email as well to everybody who attended with the resources that Cameron was talking about as well. So if you do want to stay on for a little bit, we'll stay on for about 5 minutes. We can kind of chat a little bit. Also, just a reminder, we want to hear the feedback. So after you do close out your Zoom, there will be a little window that pops up. So please just take, the 30 seconds to share some feedback on that. Next month, we hope you join us. It'll be the first Tuesday at 11:45 again. And once we get details of the presentation there, we'll make sure to get it out to everybody. But that being said, thank you so much. We'll wrap this Lean Bites up. Thanks for attending and have a wonderful rest of your day.